do be aware that you can have more than one or two or three flying into the mesh and flapping above you.
Jim Pedersen, supervisory wildlife biologist for Pinnacles National Monument, is going over a few last-minute instructions with the Condor field crew. They are preparing for what they call a trap-up. Today, a group of condors will be captured or trapped up, to have their blood tested and to have radio transmitters attached.
The overall goal of the release program here at Pinnacles is to get 20 to 30 birds free flying over the general vicinity and have them potentially reuse the caves that they used to use up in the high peaks for nesting.
Unique rock formations make up most of the 26,000 acres of Pinnacles National Monument. These rocks were once part of an ancient volcanic field, which exists today both inside the monument and almost 200 miles southeast of the park. Pushed northwest by the movement of the San Andreas Fault, over millions of years, the volcanic field was slowly split and pulled apart. The western half of the field is now the Pinnacles. Mammoth slabs of rock, towering hundreds of feet, with lofty sheer cliffs, high ledges, and shallow openings, make ideal habitat for condor nesting and roosting. Outside the park, the terrain is mostly undeveloped foothills, abundant with wild game and cattle. Ideal foraging habitat for the condors, since they can easily travel up to 150 miles a day in search of food. In 2003, Pinnacles National Monument and the California Condor Recovery Program established a condor release site within the park. Pinnacles is one of 5 release sites in western North America. They work closely with the Ventana Wildlife Society, which has a release site on the Big Sur coast about 40 miles away. In Southern California, northeast of Ventura, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service manages a release site. In northern Arizona, north of the Grand Canyon, the Peregrine Fund, working closely with the Bureau of Land Management, Arizona Game and Fish, and the National Park Service, releases condors. And a 5th release site exists in Baja California at San Pedro de Metir, which San Diego Zoo Global and the Institute for Conservation Research oversees. The crew arrives early at the condor holding pen, high in the wild Pinnacles landscape. They will deliver a stillborn organic calf carcass just before dawn to the condors in the pen. Condors are scavengers and eat only carrion. These condors are fed every few days a diet of calf, deer, or rabbit carcass. The crew also brings up 1 cage for each bird to serve as a temporary holding pen or to transport the birds if needed. A radio telemetry reading is taken to see if any free-flying condors are in the vicinity. Condor 332, released from Pinnacles 2 years ago, is in the area. He has noticed the crew's arrival and flies in to get a better look. Condors are naturally curious and keen observers. Today, there are a total of 7 condors in the pen. 5 of the birds are juveniles, hatched and raised in the Los Angeles Zoo. They have never been on their own in the wild, but they are scheduled to be released over the next few weeks. Each will be fitted with a new set of transmitters and have a blood test in preparation for their release. The other 2 birds, 265 and 313, were released in 2004 and 2005. but have been approaching hikers on wilderness trails, a potentially dangerous behavior for these birds. They have been brought in from the wild and given a lengthy timeout by being held in the pen for a few months. The condors must not become too comfortable around humans. It could result in problems for the birds. In order to limit the condor's exposure to humans, inside the pen, a one-way glass window has been installed. The human observer can see the condors, but the condors cannot see the humans. The crew will trap up or capture the birds one at a time. Court Van Tassel, condor biologist for Pinnacles National Monument, will use the large net to capture one bird. Other crew members, Katie and Patrick, will block the bird's path. As they try to fly away, they are stopped by the mesh surrounding the pen and eventually fall to the ground. In that brief moment, they are the most vulnerable. The huge condors may seem shy of humans, but their sharp beaks can puncture the thick leather of a carcass with ease, or tear open an arm of one of their human handlers in a split second. Once caught, cold towels are placed over the condor's face and legs. If it's a hot day or the bird has been flying, a wet towel on the feet will cool the birds. A wet towel covering the eyes also helps calm them down. Jim makes preparations to insert a butterfly needle into Condor 417 to take blood samples. Establishing a base level of lead in condors before they are released to the wild is important, because after their release, many of the free-flying birds have been afflicted with lead poisoning. At this time, lead poisoning presents the largest single threat to the free-flying condor's continued survival. Professor Don Smith has been collecting data on lead in condors for several years. The scientific data has been collected in an attempt to answer the question, what is the exact source of lead poisoning in the condors, and what is the lead doing to the birds? One vial of blood from each bird is given to Professor Don Smith. Professor Smith takes the samples back to his car, where he prepares them for transport to his lab. These specific samples will be later analyzed for an enzyme known to be sensitive to lead. Meanwhile, Jim is performing an immediate blood lead test for Condor 417. Since she has never been in the wild, this blood test will establish what her baseline blood lead level is before her release into the outside environment. This device reads the level of lead in a condor's blood. A drop of the condor's blood is all that is needed, and after 180 seconds, a lead level reading is output. 2.3 micrograms per deciliter is considered a normal and safe reading. Condor 417's pre-release base blood lead levels are recorded, and she is cleared to be released. This condor will get a transmitter and an ID tag so that biologists can record and track the bird's daily movements. In order to mount the transmitters and assure no harm to the bird, a metal post must hold the transmitter securely in place on the wing. Jim must first carefully punch a small hole in the edge of the wing to insert the post. The piercing procedure is a brief discomfort for the bird and is similar to a human having their ear pierced. With the post in place, the wing tag and transmitter are safely secured to the wing. A tiny RFID, or radio frequency identification chip, about the size of a grain of rice, will be injected between the shoulder blades on the back, just under the bird's skin. Each chip contains its own unique barcode. The chip serves as a backup ID in case the bird loses its wing tag or is killed in the wild and its remains are otherwise unidentifiable when found. Finally, 417 is ready for her release day. She will be put in the small cage and placed in the shade. She will remain there until all the other birds have been tested and fitted, at which time all the birds will be placed back into the holding pen. These birds will remain in the pen until their scheduled release. After release, they will be trapped again, twice a year, to be retested for blood lead levels, overall health, and transmitter maintenance.